Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. Scattered papers and half-finished experiments littered every available surface, a testament to the relentless pursuit of scientific discovery. In the center of the chaos stood a petite figure, her delicate hands trembling as they hovered over a complex array of wires and circuitry. "Screw it all," Bunny muttered, her voice a mixture of frustration and determination. She pushed a strand of golden hair behind her ear, her eyes never leaving the intricate machine before her. Just one more adjustment. As she tinkered with the device, her mind wandered to the events that had led her to this moment. It seemed like a lifetime ago when she had been Richard, a brilliant but misunderstood scientist with a burning desire to push the boundaries of human understanding. The memory of her former life as Richard flooded back, bringing with it a wave of conflicting emotions. She recalled the countless nights spent hunched over research papers, driven by an insatiable curiosity about the human mind and its potential. Richard had always felt out of place in his own skin, yearning for something more, something different. "If only they could see me now," Bunny chuckled humorlessly, her fingers deftly manipulating the delicate components of her latest creation. "They'd probably lock me up and throw away the key." The machine before her was the culmination of years of research and experimentation. It was designed to transfer theta waves between individuals, effectively swapping their consciousnesses. Richard had seen it as the ultimate exploration of identity and perception, a way to truly understand what it meant to walk in another person's shoes. But things hadn't gone according to plan. "You just had to pick her, didn't you?" Bunny chastised herself, thinking back to the fateful day when she'd first laid eyes on the actress whose body she now inhabited. Out of all the people in the world, you chose the one who was everything you weren't. Bunny had been tall, statuesque, and undeniably feminine. Everything Richard had secretly longed to be. The opportunity to experience life from her perspective had been too tempting to resist. With trembling hands and a racing heart, Richard had activated the machine, expecting a brief taste of a different existence. Instead, he'd found himself trapped. "Malfunctioning piece of junk," Bunny grumbled, giving the machine a half-hearted kick. The action sent a jolt of pain through her delicate foot, reminding her once again of the stark differences between her current form and her original body. As she nursed her throbbing toe, Bunny's gaze fell upon her reflection in a nearby monitor. The face staring back at her was still a source of fascination and discomfort. Full lips, expertly applied makeup, and long lashes framed eyes that held a mixture of wonder and trepidation. "You wanted to feel taller, and look where it got you," she sighed, running a hand through her silky hair. "Be careful what you wish for, indeed." The irony of her situation wasn't lost on Bunny. She had spent years studying gender roles and their impact on society, and now she found herself living as the very epitome of traditional femininity. The actress whose body she now inhabited had been known for her classic beauty and graceful demeanor, qualities that Bunny was still struggling to reconcile with her analytical mind. "Right, enough wallowing," Bunny declared, straightening her posture and smoothing down the fabric of her skirt. "Time to get back to work." She turned her attention back to the machine, determined to find a way to reverse the process. As she worked, she couldn't help but reflect on the unexpected challenges her new life presented. The first few days after the swap had been a whirlwind of confusion and panic. Bunny had found herself in unfamiliar surroundings, surrounded by people who expected her to be someone she wasn't. The actress's manager had been particularly persistent, bombarding her with calls about upcoming auditions and public appearances. "Miss Lappin, you have a fitting scheduled for tomorrow's red carpet event," the manager's voice echoed in her memory. "The designer is eager to see you in their latest creation." Bunny had fumbled through the conversation, making excuses about sudden illness and needing time off. It bought her some breathing room, but she knew it was only a temporary solution. As she continued to work on the machine, Bunny's mind drifted to the more mundane aspects of her new life. Simple tasks that she had taken for granted, as Richard now presented unexpected challenges. Who knew putting on a bra could be such an ordeal? She muttered, recalling her first awkward attempts at dressing herself. And don't even get me started on heels. Despite the difficulties, Bunny couldn't deny the exhilaration she felt when she caught glimpses of herself in mirrors or store windows. The graceful figure that moved with her commands, the way heads turned when she entered a room, it was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. Focus, she chided herself, shaking off the distracting thoughts. You're a scientist, not a runway model. But even as she tried to concentrate on her work, Bunny couldn't ignore the nagging voice in the back of her mind. What if she couldn't fix the machine? What if she was stuck in this body forever? The thought sent a shiver down her spine, a mixture of fear and something else she couldn't quite identify. Hours passed as Bunny tinkered with the machine, her delicate fingers moving with a precision that belied their appearance. The lab grew darker as the sun set outside, but she barely noticed, lost in her work and her thoughts. A sudden noise startled her, causing her to jump and knock over a nearby stack of papers. As she bent to pick them up, she caught sight of her reflection in a darkened computer screen. The image of a beautiful woman in a disheveled lab coat stared back at her, a stark reminder of her current predicament. What a mess! Bunny sighed, straightening up and surveying the chaos around her, both literally and figuratively. She glanced at the clock on the wall, surprised to see how late it had gotten. With a resigned sigh, she decided to call it a night. As much as she wanted to keep working, she knew that her new body had limits she was still learning to navigate. Bunny gathered her things, her movements still slightly awkward in the unfamiliar form. As she reached for her coat, her hand brushed against a framed photo on the desk. It was a picture of Richard, of her former self, accepting an award for scientific achievement. "Look at you," she murmured, picking up the frame. "So sure of yourself, so certain of your place in the world. If only you knew what was coming." She set the photo face down, unable to bear the sight of her old self any longer. With a heavy heart, Bunny made her way out of the lab and into the cool night air. The walk home was a study in contrasts. On one hand, Bunny reveled in the feeling of the breeze on her skin, the way her hair danced in the wind. On the other, she couldn't shake the unease that came with navigating the world in a body that still felt foreign. As she passed a group of young men, their eyes followed her, and she heard whispered comments about her appearance. It was a stark reminder of how differently the world treated her now.
"Hey, beautiful, why don't you smile for us?"
One of them called out. Bunny quickened her pace, her heart racing. She had never experienced this kind of attention as Richard, and it left her feeling both flattered and vulnerable.
"Not so fast, sweetheart," another voice called. "We just want to talk."
Panic rising in her throat, Bunny broke into a run. Her heels clacked against the pavement as she fled, grateful for the first time for the actress's athletic build. She didn't stop until she reached her apartment building, slamming the door behind her and leaning against it, breathless. "Well, that was educational," she panted, trying to calm her racing heart. "Note to self, invest in some running shoes." As she made her way up to her apartment, Bunny couldn't help but reflect on the incident. It was just one of many experiences that highlighted the vast differences between her old life and her new one. Inside her apartment, Bunny kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. She made her way to the bathroom, ready to perform the nightly routine she was still getting used to. As she began to remove her makeup, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. "Who are you?" she asked the image staring back at her.
"Are you still Richard? Are you Bunny? Or are you someone else entirely?"
The questions swirled in her mind as she went through the motions of her evening routine. As she slipped into a silky nightgown, another adjustment she was still getting used to. Bunny couldn't help but wonder about the real Bunny, the woman whose life she had inadvertently stolen. Was she trapped in Richard's body, trying to make sense of a life she never asked for? Or had her consciousness simply ceased to exist when the machine malfunctioned? The ethical implications of what she had done weighed heavily on Bunny's mind. "I'll fix this," she promised her reflection as she climbed into bed. "Somehow I'll make it right." But even as she made the vow, a small part of her wondered if she truly wanted to go back. The excitement of experiencing life from this new perspective, the thrill of finally feeling comfortable in her own skin, it was addictive. As sleep began to claim her, Bunny's last thoughts were of the machine waiting for her in the lab. Tomorrow she would redouble her efforts to understand what had gone wrong. Tomorrow she would take another step towards unraveling the mystery of her transformation. But for now, she allowed herself to sink into the soft embrace of her bed, her new body relaxing in a way Richard's never had. As she drifted off, Bunny couldn't help but wonder what new adventures and challenges the coming day would bring in this strange new life she found herself living. The early morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow across Bunny's sleeping form. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open as consciousness slowly returned. For a brief, blissful moment, she forgot about her predicament, simply enjoying the feeling of waking up in a body that felt right. Then reality came crashing back. "Another day in paradise," Bunny muttered sarcastically, stretching her lithe limbs and sitting up in bed. She caught sight of herself in the mirror across the room and paused, still not entirely used to the reflection staring back at her. As she went through her morning routine, Bunny's mind wandered to the tasks that lay ahead. The machine in her lab needed her attention, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial. What if the solution to her problem wasn't in the hardware, but in the underlying theory? "Time to hit the books," she decided, pulling on a comfortable outfit and heading to her home office. The room was a stark contrast to the rest of the apartment. While Bunny had inherited the actress's taste for elegant furnishings and decor, this space was pure Richard. Bookshelves lined the walls, crammed with scientific journals and research papers. A large whiteboard dominated one wall, covered in complex equations and hastily scribbled notes. Bunny settled into the chair behind the desk, wincing slightly as she realized once again how much smaller she was now. She reached for a nearby notebook, flipping through pages of calculations and theories. "There has to be something here," she murmured, her eyes scanning the familiar handwriting. "Some clue I've overlooked." Hours passed as Bunny immersed herself in her research. She barely noticed the growling of her stomach or the stiffness in her muscles from sitting in one position for too long. Her mind was alive with possibilities, connecting dots she had never seen before. "Of course!" she exclaimed suddenly, leaping to her feet. "The theta waves aren't just transferring consciousness, they're rewriting neural pathways." Excited by her breakthrough, Bunny rushed to the whiteboard, grabbing a marker and beginning to scribble furiously. Her small hands flew across the surface, filling it with equations and diagrams. "If I can isolate the specific frequency that targets memory centers," she mused aloud, "I might be able to reverse the process without a full consciousness transfer." Lost in her thoughts, Bunny didn't hear the knock at the door at first. It wasn't until the sound became more insistent that she snapped out of her reverie. "Coming!" she called, hastily capping the marker and smoothing down her hair. She made her way to the door, wondering who could be visiting her. As she opened the door, Bunny found herself face to face with a tall, imposing woman in a sharp business suit. The woman's eyes widened in surprise as she took in Bunny's disheveled appearance. "Miss Lappin," the woman said, her tone a mixture of relief and exasperation. "I've been trying to reach you for days. We have a serious situation on our hands." Bunny blinked, momentarily at a loss for words. She recognized the woman as the actress's agent, Sarah, if she remembered correctly. I'm sorry," Bunny stammered, trying to channel the poise and confidence she imagined the real Bunny would have. "I've been dealing with some personal issues. What seems to be the problem?" Sarah's expression softened slightly, but the tension in her posture remained. "May I come in? This isn't a conversation we should have in the hallway." Bunny nodded, stepping aside to let the agent enter. As she closed the door behind them, her mind raced with possibilities. What kind of situation could be so urgent? Had someone discovered her secret? "Bunny," Sarah began, her voice taking on a gentler tone. "I understand you've been going through something lately, but we can't keep putting off your commitments. The studio is threatening to sue for breach of contract if you don't show up for the table read tomorrow." Bunny's heart sank. In her focus on solving the scientific puzzle of her transformation, she had completely forgotten about the actress's professional obligations. "The table read," she repeated weakly. "Right, for the movie?" Sarah's eyebrows rose. "The television series, Bunny. Starlight Horizons, the sci-fi drama you've been attached to for months? Please tell me you haven't forgotten." Panic began to rise in Bunny's chest. She was a scientist, not an actress. How was she supposed to convincingly play a role when she could barely manage to play herself? "Of course not," she lied, forcing a smile. "I've just been so focused on getting into character. You know how I like to immerse myself in my roles." Sarah didn't look entirely convinced, but she seemed willing to accept the explanation for now. "Well, I'm glad to hear that. But Bunny, you need to understand the gravity of the situation. This could make or break your career. You can't afford any more delays or strange behavior." Bunny nodded, her mind whirling as she tried to figure out a way out of this predicament. "I understand. I'll be there tomorrow. I promise." "Good," Sarah said, visibly relaxing. "I've brought the latest version of the script for you to review. And please, for the love of God, answer your phone when I call. I can't keep making excuses for you." As the agent handed over a thick stack of papers, Bunny felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. This was real. She was going to have to pretend to be an actress in front of professionals who knew the real Bunny intimately. "Is there anything else you need from me?" Bunny asked, hoping her voice didn't betray her inner turmoil. Sarah shook her head. "Just be there on time, know your lines, and try to avoid any more eccentricities. The producers are already nervous about your recent behavior. We can't afford any more slip-ups." With a final nod, Sarah made her way to the door. As she was about to leave, she turned back, her expression softening. "And Bunny? Whatever's been going on with you lately? I hope you're okay. You know you can talk to me if you need to, right?" Bunny felt a pang of guilt at the genuine concern in the agent's voice. "I know. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it." As the door closed behind Sarah, Bunny leaned against it, letting out a long, shaky breath. She looked down at the script in her hands, the weight of it suddenly feeling like a ton of bricks. "Well, Richard," she muttered to herself, "looks like you're about to add actor to your resume. Let's hope those improv classes in college weren't a complete waste of time." With a resigned sigh, Bunny made her way back to her office. She had less than 24 hours to learn her lines and figure out how to convincingly play a character she knew nothing about. As she settled in to start reading the script, she couldn't help but wonder if this would be the challenge that finally exposed her secret to the world. As Bunny settled into her office chair, script in hand, she couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the task ahead. Her eyes scanned the pages, taking in character names and plot points that meant nothing to her. She was a scientist, not an actress. How was she supposed to pull this off? "Focus, Bunny," she muttered to herself, using the actress's name as a reminder of her current predicament. "You've solved complex scientific problems? This is just a different kind of experiment." She began to read the script in earnest, trying to absorb as much information as possible. The show, Starlight Horizons, seemed to be a sci-fi drama set on a space station in the distant future. Bunny's character, Dr. Alara Voss, was the station's brilliant but troubled chief science officer. "Well, at least I've got the science part down," Bunny mused, a wry smile tugging at her lips. As she delved deeper into the script, Bunny found herself becoming engrossed in the story. The complex relationships between the characters, the intricate plot twists, and the underlying themes of identity and humanity resonated with her in ways she hadn't expected. Hours ticked by as Bunny pored over the script, making notes and trying to memorize her lines. She barely noticed the sun setting outside her window, lost in the world of starlight horizons. A sudden rumbling from her stomach jolted her back to reality. Bunny glanced at the clock, surprised to see it was well past dinner time.
Guess even brilliant scientists need to eat,
she quipped, stretching as she stood up. In the kitchen, Bunny rummaged through the fridge, grateful that her new body seemed to have a much faster metabolism than Richard's had. She threw together a quick salad, her mind still preoccupied with the script. As she ate, Bunny couldn't shake the feeling that there was something familiar about the show's premise. The idea of consciousness transfer, of identity being malleable. It hit a little too close to home. Art imitating life, she mused, twirling her fork thoughtfully. Or is it the other way around? After finishing her meal, Bunny returned to her office, determined to make more progress on memorizing her lines. She had always prided herself on her quick mind and ability to retain information, but this was a different kind of challenge altogether. Okay, let's try this again, she said, clearing her throat.
Captain, I understand your concerns, but the quantum fluctuations in the asteroid field are unlike anything we've ever encountered. We can't pass up this opportunity for study, even if it means...
Bunny trailed off, forgetting the next line. She glanced down at the script, frustrated. Even if it means putting the mission at risk, she finished, sighing. Come on, Bunny, you can do this. She continued practicing, running through her lines over and over again. As the night wore on, Bunny found herself slipping more easily into the character of Dr. Alara Voss. There was something comforting about pretending to be someone else, even if just for a moment. Around midnight, Bunny's eyes began to droop. She yawned, stretching her arms above her head. Just a few more pages, she mumbled, fighting against the wave of exhaustion washing over her. But her body had other ideas. Before she knew it, Bunny had drifted off to sleep, her head resting on the open script. Dreams came quickly, a swirling mix of her old life and new. In her dream, Bunny found herself back in her lab, standing before the consciousness transfer machine. But instead of the sleek, modern device she remembered, it now looked like something out of a cheesy sci-fi movie, all blinking lights and unnecessary levers. Dream Bunny approached the machine, her heart pounding. She knew she had to use it, had to find a way back to her old self. But as she reached out to activate it, she hesitated.
Are you sure this is what you want?
A voice asked. Bunny turned to see Dr. Alara Voss standing behind her, an enigmatic smile on her face. I don't know, Bunny admitted, her voice sounding strange to her own ears. Sometimes, Alara said, stepping closer, the journey is more important than the destination. Maybe you're exactly where you need to be. Before Bunny could respond, the dream shifted. She was on the set of Starlight Horizons, trying to deliver her lines. But every time she opened her mouth, scientific equations came pouring out instead of words. The director, a shadowy figure she couldn't quite make out, kept yelling, "Cut!" and demanding she do it again. Bunny tried desperately to remember her lines, but all she could think of were complex formulas and theories. Just as the pressure became unbearable, Bunny jolted awake, her heart racing. She blinked, disoriented, as she took in her surroundings. The script lay open before her, slightly crumpled from where she had been sleeping on it. What a night, she muttered, rubbing her eyes. Bunny glanced at the clock and felt a jolt of panic. It was already 7 a.m. The table read was scheduled for 9, and she still had to get ready and make her way to the studio. No time for a crisis now, she told herself firmly, pushing aside the lingering unease from her dreams. You've got a show to save. Bunny rushed through her morning routine, trying to channel the poise and confidence she imagined the real Bunny would have. She opted for a simple but elegant outfit, black slacks and a crisp white blouse, hoping it would help her blend in with the other actors. As she applied her makeup, a task she was still getting used to, Bunny couldn't help but marvel at the face staring back at her in the mirror. The delicate features, the clear blue eyes, it was all so different from what she had known as Richard. "You can do this," she told her reflection, adding a final touch of lipstick. "You're Bunny Lappin, star of Starlight Horizons. This is just another role to play." With one last deep breath, Bunny gathered her things and headed out the door. The morning air was crisp and invigorating, helping to clear the last cobwebs of sleep from her mind. As she made her way to the studio, Bunny ran through her lines in her head, praying that she wouldn't forget everything the moment she sat down at the table, read. The studio lot was a hive of activity when she arrived. People rushed back and forth, carrying equipment and shouting instructions. Bunny felt a moment of panic. How was she supposed to know where to go? Just then, she heard a familiar voice calling her name. She turned to see Sarah, her agent, waving at her from across the lot. "Bunny, over here!" Sarah called, looking relieved to see her. "I was starting to worry you wouldn't show." Bunny made her way over, trying to project an air of calm confidence. "Of course I'm here," she said, hoping her voice didn't betray her nerves. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Sarah gave her a quick once-over, nodding approvingly. "You look great. How are you feeling? Ready to knock their socks off?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Bunny replied, managing a smile. Sarah led her into the building and through a maze of corridors. Bunny tried to take in everything around her, marveling at the behind-the-scenes world of television production. It was so different from the sterile environment of her lab, yet there was a similar energy of creativity and innovation in the air. Finally, they arrived at a large conference room. Several people were already seated around a long table, chatting and laughing. Bunny felt her heart rate increase as all eyes turned to her when she entered. "Bunny!" a tall, handsome man exclaimed, standing up to greet her. "Great to see you! We were starting to think you'd gone Hollywood on us and decided to bail." Bunny froze for a moment, panic threatening to overwhelm her. Who was this man? Was she supposed to know him? "Oh, you know me," she said, forcing a laugh. "Always like to make an entrance." The man grinned, seemingly satisfied with her response. "Well, you certainly know how to keep us on our toes. Come on, your seat's right here next to me." As Bunny took her seat, she noticed name placards in front of each person. The man who had greeted her was apparently named Jake Stevens, and according to the script, he played Captain Reese Hawthorne, the lead of the show. "All right, everyone," a woman at the head of the table called out. "Let's get started. We've got a lot to cover today." The table read began, and Bunny found herself swept up in the story. Despite her nerves, she managed to deliver her lines with reasonable confidence, drawing on her understanding of the character she had gleaned from her night of intense study. As the read progressed, Bunny began to relax. She found herself enjoying the back and forth with her fellow actors, the way they brought the script to life. It was a far cry from the solitary work she was used to as a scientist, but there was something exhilarating about this collaborative process. During a short break, Jake leaned over to her.
"You're on fire today, Bun,"
he said, using a nickname that made Bunny's heart skip a beat.
"Whatever's been going on with you lately, it's definitely improved your performance. You're really capturing Alara's inner conflict."
Bunny smiled, both pleased and a little unnerved by the compliment. "Thanks," she said. "I've been exploring some new perspectives lately. I guess it's influencing my work." Jake nodded approvingly.
"Well, keep it up. The chemistry between Alara and Reese is really popping today."
As the read resumed, Bunny found herself more fully inhabiting the character of Dr. Alara Voss. She began to understand the woman's struggles, her brilliance tempered by self-doubt, her desire to push the boundaries of science conflicting with her duty to the crew. In many ways, Bunny realized, Alara's journey mirrored her own. Both were women of science grappling with extraordinary circumstances, trying to reconcile their identities with the roles thrust upon them. As they reached the climax of the episode, Bunny delivered a passionate monologue about the nature of identity and the possibilities of consciousness transfer. The words resonated deeply with her, and she found herself getting emotional as she spoke. In the end, she read, her voice trembling slightly, "Who are we but the sum of our experiences? If we can transfer consciousness, copy memories, what does that mean for the concept of self? Are we defined by our bodies, our minds, or something more ineffable?" As she finished, Bunny noticed a hushed silence had fallen over the room. She looked up to see everyone staring at her, many with tears in their eyes. "Holy wow, Bunny," the director breathed. "That was incredible. I've never heard you deliver a speech like that before." Bunny felt a blush creeping up her cheeks. "I guess I just really connected with the material," she said softly. The rest of the red flew by, and before Bunny knew it, they were wrapping up. As people began to gather their things and chat excitedly about the upcoming shoot, Bunny felt a mix of relief and exhilaration. She had done it. She had successfully navigated her first day as an actress, fooling everyone into believing she was the real Bunny Lappin. As she was preparing to leave, Jake approached her again. "Hey, Bun," he said, his tone casual, but his eyes intense. "A bunch of us are going out for drinks to celebrate the start of the new season. Want to join?" Bunny hesitated. On one hand, she was exhausted and eager to get back to her research. On the other, she knew that the real Bunny would probably accept the invitation. "Sure," she found herself saying. "That sounds great." Jake's face lit up. "Awesome. I'll text you the details. It'll be good to hang out outside of work again. We've missed you lately." As Jake walked away, Bunny felt a pang of guilt. She had been so focused on solving the mystery of her transformation that she hadn't given much thought to the relationships in Bunny's life. What if she was damaging the actress's career and personal life through her actions? But as she made her way out of the studio, script tucked under her arm, Bunny couldn't deny the thrill of excitement coursing through her. For the first time since her transformation, she felt like she was truly living in this new body, this new life. The sunlight hit her face as she stepped outside, and Bunny took a deep breath, savoring the moment. She had overcome her first major hurdle as Bunny Lappin. Now, she just had to figure out how to balance her new acting career with her ongoing scientific research. As she hailed a taxi to take her home, Bunny's mind was already racing with ideas. Perhaps there was a way to incorporate her scientific knowledge into her performance, to use this platform to explore the very concepts that had led to her current situation. The taxi pulled up, and Bunny slid into the back seat, giving the driver her address. As the car pulled away from the studio, she couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation for what was to come. She had successfully navigated the table read, but the real challenge was just beginning. How long could she keep up this charade? And more importantly, did she even want to find a way back to her old life? These questions and more swirled in Bunny's mind as the taxi wound its way through the busy streets of Los Angeles. She had a lot to think about and even more to figure out. But for now, she allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. Whatever came next, she would face it head-on, just as she had faced the challenges of this day. After all, she was Bunny Lappin now, actress, scientist, and protagonist of her own incredible story. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.